And it begins. Hi, welcome to the channel. I've got my copy and I'm going to take you through all the interesting stuff from this book and the stuff that's not already been exposed on Warhammer Community. A couple of quick questions. Are there any data sheets in this book? Well, yes, there are two. There's Fabius Bile and Be'lakor himself. Do Chaos Space Marines have two rooms? No, and it was never really going to happen in this book. It's a 120-page book, and just over half of it is devoted to the lore, campaign and crusade that relates to taking the story forward for the Charadon sector and allowing you to create your custom battles. I'm not going to take you through the lore. It's an interesting read if you like that kind of thing. There are a couple of things about this book that I find disheartening. The first is that almost a third of it is a copy and paste of Chaos rules, and it goes to great lengths to describe how it's not changed anything. It's only changed formatting, style. And as I said in a previous video, if you're new to Chaos and you want those rules, then this is quite nice to have it all in one place. For most Chaos fans though, it's just another time they're seeing the same rules reprinted. It was an opportunity missed. You got 2 pages devoted to the Skitarii, Army of Renown, 4 pages devoted to Sisters of Battle, which is very strange because those rules are essentially just more rules. What's it been, a month since the codex came out? Why are these rules not in that codex? And finally, there are 4 pages about Be'lakor and the disciples of Be'lakor, and that's the bit I was most interested about. Starting with the Chaos rules, I'm not going to go through the details, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what you'll find in this book. But essentially, rules have been pulled together from the Imperial Nihilists, Vigilus Ablaze, Psychic Awakening books, Faith and Fury, and the War of the Spider. Quite a lot has come into this. It's all about the supplementary codex for Heretic Astartes. And in here you'll find Word Bearers, Night Lords, Alpha Legion, Iron Warriors, Emperor's Children, World Eaters, Black Legion, Renegade Chapters, and Creations of Bile. And it does include any FAQs and erratas to previous versions of these rules, so at least it's up to date. Moving on to the Skitarii Veteran Cohorts. This is buffs for the one army that really does not need any buffs. They're already the strongest army in the meta, and there's now more rules, and it's the second book of rules. That aside, it's essentially just for Skitarii. You can only take one of each Tech Priest. The Marshal has to be your Warlord, but that is actually quite a cheap buffing character anyway. And there's some really good buffs around Veterans and Vanguard. You are paying for that, an extra 2 points a month, so it's 10 points for each rather than 8. You've got to decide are the benefits worth that extra cost. But for Rangers, you're getting a +1 attack, +1 leadership, 5+ invuln, which is the big deal, and also they get an automatic light cover, so +1 to armor save. Whereas the Vanguard are getting -1 strength and toughness with their rad saturation. Blast weapons don't count for large squads, they're only assumed to be in a squad of 5. And for advancing, roll 2d6, discard 1 is actually pretty strong. It does come with its own Warlord trait, which is just okay. It's all about reducing the cost of CPs for stratagems. There are a load of new stratagems, but they're quite CP heavy. I'm not going to go through them here. The big take home on this is they got a really powerful relic. It's called the Cantic Thrallnet. It must be considered an auto-include, as anything over data tether or within 9 inches gets an extra Doctrino imperative, which essentially is probably going to be giving them +1 to hit, +1 armor save. A really strong relic there, buffing units that are already some of the strongest anyway in the meta. I wonder if they're going to get even more buffs in future books. A quick look at the sisters. I'll gloss over the fact that it annoys me that these aren't just in the codex anyway. You get 3 warlord traits, 4 relics, and a load of stratagems. Of your 3 warlord traits, 2 are reasonable. Saintly Example. Essentially, you take this alongside a warlord trait, and what it allows you to do is if your warlord dies, you can actually make another character your warlord and give them a different trait if you want. So it means you'd have to kill 2 warlords to gain that objective reward. And the second Warlord trait, which is pretty good, is Martyr's Strength, where every wound the Warlord loses, they gain +1 strength and attack, up to a maximum of 2. I'd like to see this with Celestine as your Warlord. It's going to make her pretty handy. There are 4 relics, 2 quite specific ones, where it's only for a Dog Martyr or Imagifier. You got the Helm of Fiery Heart, which once per battle gives the holder of the relic a 2+ invuln, and the one that everyone's been talking about, the Blade of Sacrifice. This is only for a model that already has a power sword, and what this allows the model to do is to give up wounds to deal mortal wounds instead when it deals damage. The model can choose to give it 1 or 2 wounds, which essentially could double the output of attacks, and since it's dealing mortal wounds, it's ignoring invulns, but it does make the model quite fragile. A quick look at the Be'lakor pages. Essentially, we've actually seen most of this through the Warhammer previews. It's quite nice to get it all in one place for once. Be'lakor's data sheet is as we expected. The one thing to note there is he doesn't like demon princes, so he can't be put in a detachment with a demon prince. 2 of the pages are stratagems and a new psychic discipline. And you get 1 page that describes what the disciples of Be'lakor means. It's surprisingly complex and surprisingly restrictive. Essentially, there's a massive list of units that you just can't take, including all the key ones like Bloodthirster, Lord of Change, Great Unclean One, Keeper of Secrets, any Demon Engines, World Eaters, Thousand Suns, Death Guard, Emperor's Children, Chaos Knights, Titanicus, Traitors, Khorne Berserkers, Rubik Marines, Plague Marines, Noise Marines. There's not a great deal left. Then you can't include a Demon Prince in the same detachments. Even when you do include demons, you're limited to only one per Chaos God. Your cultists can't outnumber your Heretic Astartes, and any of your Heretic Astartes legions loses their legion benefits. So I'm actually struggling to see is it even worth building this list. We saw that the models included do get some buffs. For demons, opponents can't reroll hit rolls against them, and if they're over 12 inches away, you have to take one from the hit rolls. For Heretic Astartes, you get +1 to combat attrition, and anything over 12 inch also has to subtract 1 from hit rolls. I spotted a mistake in the Warhammer community for the Blessing of Be'lakor stratagem. In the community post, they said that Be'lakor himself could use the stratagem. Essentially what it does is change the damage for an attack to 0. But this stratagem can only be used on Disciples of Be'lakor, and Be'lakor himself doesn't have that keyword. If you've read this and you realise that I've got it wrong and he can use it, let me know. But it is quite confusing what you can do. I've already got a video which goes through Be'lakor, some of the stratagems and the psychic abilities, so why not check that out as well? Is it worth £35 in the UK from GW website? I don't think it is. The Be'lakor and the Disciples of Be'lakor rules just don't excite me as much as I thought they were going to. I thought you could really do a massive chaos soup and then get extra buffs for it. It's too restrictive. For the way I play battles, I'm unlikely to use this book for the Sisters of Battle rules. I'd rather just transcribe them from here into my actual codex. I'm not holding my breath for the new upcoming Warzone Octarius book. If that has Orc rules in it, just after the Orc Codex gets released, I'm going to go spare. Hope you thought this was useful to have a look at the book. Hope it's given you some insight that you haven't already heard. Thanks very much and see you again soon.